Hello, welcome to the third and final part of the DSSVue data entry and editing lecture. My name is Oskar Hurst, and I'm here with the Water Management and Systems Division at HEC, the Hydrologic Engineering Center. So for this last part, we're going to be looking at the graphical editor and looking at what it is and what it does. So here in front of you, you can see an open graphical editor. So it has within it both a plot of the data within our time series, as well as a table of that data. It allows for both editing within the plot graphically as within the table using all our tabular editing methods. So some other important things to note about the graphical editor is that one, the graphical editor only works for time series information. You cannot use the graphical editor to edit paired data or any other data sets. The second is that it was built off of a modification of the CWMS validation editor. So it has a lot of the same components and capabilities. Some of those capabilities it has is the ability to draw new portions of a curve, to move points along a curve, as well as to linearly interpolate any missing data along a curve, as well as all of the same tabular editing tools as our other tables. So let's look at some of the components of the graphical editor. So here, this red line, this is the selected row. So it represents this blue highlighted row, which we selected within the table. So if we switch, if we click on a different row within the table, we're going to see that this red line is going to move to match that position. We then have the viewable table area, which is this green hashed area here. So this represents all of the data entry points that we can see within our table at this period of time. So we then have the original data column within our table. So this is a column that allows us to see all the original unmodified data. So we always have that to reference. The next column is the estimated or entry data. So this is the edited data that we're changing. So if we're going to write data into the table, right in this column, this is where it all goes. And finally, we then have the revised column, which is both original and edited data at once. So it contains all the original data, but if we accept any edits, it's then going to be moved into this revised column. So up to the top right, we can see we have the edit data set. So this is, it shows which data set we're currently looking at, but also has the ability to drop down to look at multiple data sets if we selected that when opening up the graphical editor. So within some of the options that we have linear interpolation. So these estimate features allow us to estimate the values between two selected points. So we can do that via linearly interpolation, and also has an option to estimate all missing data via linear interpolation within our data set. So any changes that we made within the entry, in order to move them to the revised column, we have to click accept. And in order to do the same tabular editing, we have the add data and delete data options. Okay, so some other tools we have is that we can open up the table as well as the plot that we're used to doing within DSSVue, but also we can undo all of the changes that we might have done in this file to bring it back to its original state. Once you've finished any of the editing, we have the save as to save your file into a new location, or just the save data to overwrite and save it in the same location. So we have the mouse cursor here. So this mouse cursor tool lets us go and click and see the different curve properties on our plot. Then our next tool, we have the zoom tool. So this lets us drag and zoom into different sections of our plot to get a better view. Our next tool is the single point editor. So this allows you to edit just single points along your curve. And the final tool is the multi-point editor, which allows you to draw curves and edit multiple points at once. So let's look at how we're going to draw curve segments. So the first thing to do when we're drawing a curve section is to select that multi-point editor tool. So once we have that, what we have to do is left-click along our plot where we want to draw the curve. And each time we left-click, it's going to add a new point to our curve. If you ever make a mistake, all you have to do is left-click the point in the past, and it'll delete your current point. And so once you've added all the points to the curve that you want to draw, if you right-click, it'll automatically draw the curve to match all of the data points within your plot. So let's go ahead and look at how this happens. So as you can see here, we have all of our different plots, all of our different points that have been graphed. And then once we right-click, it's then going to plot and linearly interpolate between all of these points to then generate a curve of this data. You can see all this data is put into the estimated column. And then when we click accept, it's going to be moved into the revised column. So let's see if we can show an example of this. So here we have our graphical editor. Now let me show you how to open up the graphical editor first. So given our selected time series, we can either go to edit, the dropdown, and click the graphical editor here. This is going to open it up. But we can also go ahead and click this icon right here, which is the graphical editor icon. It'll also bring up our graphical editor. So from here, let's say we want to add a curve. We're going to select this multi-point tool. Then we're going to just start left-clicking where our curve wants to be. And let's say now I really didn't like this curve and I want to go back. If I just left-click on the previous point, I can work my way back to where we want to be. So let's draw a new curve. So once we've drawn our curve, if we then right-click, it's then going to plot all the different points along the curve. And you can see them all within the estimated entry column. Another thing that you can notice is as we're scrolling, the green viewable hash is scrolling with us, showing that our view is being changed. And all of these highlighted dots these edited dots are represented by these purple triangles along the graph. So finally, if we click accept, we now see that the revised line, so the blue line, is now where our curve is. And let's say I've done this, but I realize I made a mistake and I want to change how I draw my curve. If I click reload, the undo all, it's going to return me back to my original state. Okay, so now let's look at single point editing. So for single point editing, we're now going to select the single point editing tool. And all we're going to do is we're going to double click on the value in the graph that we want to edit. Once we click on this value, it's going to take us to that point, which then when we left click it, we can drag it up and down to shift the value of it. And when we release the mouse, that's where our new value is going to be. And we can edit each point individually like that. And this will change its value in the estimated entry portion of the table. And when we want to move it to the revised portion, same as before, all we have to do is click accept. So here you can see this purple triangle representing the value we're going to edit. And you can drag it up and down to make that changes. Let's go ahead and look at it here. So let's select a random point. And we see that our red line is changed. Let's say I want to pick a point along this curve here. Okay, so now let's zoom into it. So we're going to use the zoom tool so we can get a better view. And so here is our point. We're going to use the single editor tool say that we want to edit this point. Now we can see that we have this red triangle here. So if we go back to here, and we can see that we can drag this triangle up and down. So when we release it, it should. If we release it, and then we select accept, oh, there we go. Now we can edit the tool, and we can see that our value is changing inside our estimated column. When we release it, that's where we want it to be, and we can click accept to move that column to the revised, and we can see that our revised line now jumps up to match that point. And that's how you edit a single point within your graphical editor. Now finally, we're going to be talking about graphical editing. So this is all of some of the other editing that we can do within the portion. And something to note is that the table part of our graphical editor has all of the same features as the tabular editor. So if you watch the second part of the lecture, you can see all the different capabilities we have. The only other important thing to note is that you need to make sure to click accept after you've made those changes to move them to the revised column. Okay, so thank you. For any other help or questions or additional training, please feel free to look at our resources. So we have other tutorials and guides linked here, as well as the manual for DSSVue, as well as the help page, part of our discourse for DSSVue, and our training teams chat here. So thank you so much, and hope to see you all again.